What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you guys with another episode of What's the Word Dirty Bird. It is Wednesday. It's another What's the Word Wednesday. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys for continuing to tune in. As always, we do this every Wednesday night at 8 p.m., 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So I hope you guys so far are having a great week. I hope you guys had a great Wednesday so far. But we're gonna talk about the NFL draft tonight. Of course, we're gonna do fan Q&A as we always do. But with that being said, I do want to jump into the chat really quick and say what's up to you guys that has joined already. What's going on, Noah Tyndale? He says, "How everybody doing? What's going on, man?" Joseph Thornton, what's going on, bro? I appreciate you joining tonight as always. Bubba Gump, what's going on, bro? He said, "What up? What up?" Jerry Bodie, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight. Isaac, what's happening, man? I appreciate you joining. I hope you guys are having a great Wednesday night so far. Dre Murphy, he said, "What up, everybody? How everybody doing and feeling on this hump night?" Millie Mills, what's up, man? I appreciate you joining as always as well. Michael Robertson, what's going on, man? He said ATL all day. You already know what's going on, man. And what's going on, fam? Tremble thinks, what's going on? So with that being said, I will jump back into the chat a little bit later. But if you guys could share out this content, hit that like button for your boy. I do want this to get out there and reach as many people as possible. All the Atlanta Falcons fans, NFL fans, definitely let your friends and your family know about the channel, know about the live streams that we do every Wednesday night. And not just on Wednesday nights, but also the other days that we do the heavy hitter shows. Mike and K Styles, they pretty much do a show on Mondays. Some Tuesday nights, they do the Friday Night Madness. And the Six Man, he also does his things on Thursday night with the six-man combo. So you guys definitely tune in to each and every one of our channels. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on each and every one of our channels. But with that being said, I do want to jump right into the first topic of the night, which will pretty much take up. This is going to be the main topic of the night because we are in the month of April, which is my birthday month, me and my wife's birthday month, and my youngest son's birthday month. So shouts out to the Aries in the building. But with that being said, I do want to talk about the NFL draft because the NFL draft is coming up at the end of this month. So I definitely want to get into NFL draft talk and kind of talk about what I think the Falcons should do in this NFL draft. You guys know we've been talking about the NFL draft for the last couple months. We've been talking about free agency, but now the free agency is starting to die down a little bit. I do want to start talking about the draft because that is the next thing that's coming up. That's going to be huge for our Atlanta Falcons, especially now that we've kind of in a rebuild mode. We got rid of Matt Ryan or traded Matt Ryan to the Colts. And pretty much we've changed this whole team around. Like if you look at this Falcons team, the foundation is pretty much all of the Dan Quinn, Thomas Dimitroff in that era. Those players in that era are pretty much gone. At this point, you got Deion Jones from that 2016 Falcons team that went to the Super Bowl. You got Grady Jarrett, and that's pretty much it. Like other than those two guys, you really don't have many guys from that 2016 team. So we've seen pretty much a full makeover of this team, and this is going to be a huge draft by Terry Fontenot in the front office. And I'm really interested to see what the Falcons do in this draft. Now, I kind of wanted to give you guys like my top 5 guys on my draft board. I kind of want to talk about that tonight. And then I want to hear from you guys as well in the chat of what you guys feel about maybe the top 5 guys that I feel like the Atlanta Falcons should target in this draft. The first guy on my list, if you guys been looking at going and checking out my channel, I've been doing prospect videos. I started maybe about a month and a half ago. The first video I did, who's the number 1 guy on my draft board for the Falcons, is Jordan Davis. And the reason I think that Jordan Davis should be the guy that the Falcons should have at the top of their draft board is because we don't know where Grady Jarrett stands at this point. They were trying to work out an extension with Grady Jarrett, who's our star defensive tackle slash defensive lineman. He's our best defensive lineman and arguably have been our best defensive player the last 3 to 4 years. So because we don't know where Grady Jarrett stands at this point, and they haven't been able to get an extension done with Grady Jarrett, I think that Jordan Davis should be that guy that's at the top of our draft board, because you guys know we need to build the trenches. And Jordan Davis, I talked about it a couple shows ago. He's a guy that can affect the whole defense. He's not a guy that's going to come in necessarily and just be that dominant player by himself, but he can come in and be a dominant player and also affect the linebackers, Deion Jones, and now Rashaan Evans, who's behind him, Michael Walker. He can come in and get Grady Jarrett away from those double teams. And he's a guy that can also draw attention away from our edge rushers like the Ogundejis, who will be able to get one-on-one matchups. And then if we're able to draft a young outside linebacker or edge rusher, he'll be able to help those guys as well because of his presence in the middle. And then the number one thing that I think Jordan Davis brings to our team is being able to stop the run. And that's something that our Falcons kind of have struggled with. We know within the last, I'll say since 2017, really, we've struggled to stop the run. So we definitely, I think Jordan Davis will have the biggest impact of any player if we were able to bring him in. Other than a quarterback, I think that on the defensive side of things, I think Jordan Davis will have more of an impact than a corner, than a safety, than a linebacker. The only player I think that could have the impact that Jordan Davis could have would be like an elite edge rusher. But other than a guy in the trenches, I think that Jordan Davis will have the biggest impact. Now, the second player in my top 5 for the Falcons to target is Kayvon Thibodeaux. Kayvon Thibodeaux is a guy out of Oregon, the edge rusher. He's the guy that I think that the Falcons should target as well. If for any reason they decided they don't want to take Jordan Davis, I feel like regardless, you have to draft somebody in the trenches, a dominant player in the trenches. And I think that Kayvon Thibodeaux, if the rumors are true that his draft stock is falling, I definitely think Kayvon Thibodeaux out of Oregon is a guy who could come in. I did a video early on when I was doing my prospect videos. I think he was the second prospect video I did. And I compared him to like a Khalil Mack. I really think that he's going to have that type of impact as an NFL player. If he's drafted into the right system, I think that Kayvon Thibodeaux could be the next Khalil Mack. He has that type of skill set, physical, good with his hands, can play the run, can also be a guy that dominates at rushing the passer. And he really has no weaknesses in his game as far as a 3-down lineman. You can play him all 3 downs, and he really doesn't have any weaknesses from me looking at his tape. So he's the second guy that I would go with if I was the Falcons in this draft. And then the third guy that I would be looking at if I were the Falcons is the wide receiver position, and that would be Drake London out of USC. I think that Drake London is one of those guys as a wide receiver, 6'5", 200 plus pounds. I think he would fit in this Arthur Smith's offense perfectly, and he would be the guy that I would go with at the wide receiver position. He's the number 1 wide receiver on my board for the Falcons because of the type of offense we run, the offensive scheme we run. I think that he would be the guy that I would go with if I were the Falcons. To me, he fits the mold of that A.J. Brown type, of that big physical. Michael Thomas of the Saints is another guy I kind of compare him to. He's a guy that can run those slant routes. He's a guy that can break tackles, and he's just a physical specimen. He's not the most explosive guy as far as speed, but in this offense with Arthur Smith being that pretty much all of the passes for the most part are intermediate to short passes, I would look at Drake London being the guy that would fit the mold of this scheme perfectly. If you pair him with Kyle Pitts, because we're trying to be a physical style offense where it's a lot of running the football, heavy play action, Drake London would be the perfect fit in this offense. So he's the third guy on my draft board that I would think the Falcons should go after. Number 4 on my draft board, this could go a lot of different ways at 4, but it would be out of the pass rushers. George Karlaftis is a guy that I did a video on. I wouldn't mind seeing him get drafted by the Falcons. Jermaine Johnson, he's another guy out of Florida State. Those two guys, I wouldn't mind seeing either one of those guys or Travon Walker, the edge rusher out of Georgia. Those three guys will be the fourth guys on my list on this draft board. I wouldn't mind seeing any of those guys because I think all of those guys are pretty solid in the trenches. I think Kayvon Thibodeaux may be a step above those guys, and that's why I have him at 2. But Karlaftis, I liked his tape. Travon Walker, I pretty much liked his tape. And Jermaine Johnson, all 3 of those guys, I think could be drafted by the Falcons, and they would make an impact as an edge rusher. And then my 5th guy on my draft board would be the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Either Chris Olave or the one kid Wilson that I did a video on. I think both of those guys are great route runners. We need a number 1 wide receiver regardless of how you want to slice it. And I think that he could be Garrett Wilson of Ohio State or Chris Olave. I like both of those guys. Both of those guys are great route runners, speedsters. They can do it all. They're similar to a Calvin Ridley, but both of those guys are excellent route runners. If you need a number 1 wide receiver where you're looking for a guy that's going to stretch the defense and they decide that they don't want to go with a Drake London that's physical, but they want a game-breaking wide receiver, Wilson out of Ohio State, Chris Olave. Both of those guys are speedsters. And honorable mention could be George Pickens as well out of Georgia. George Pickens, and then also honorable mention Christian Watson, the kid out of North Dakota State. Any of those 3 guys are the 5th on my draft board. So I wouldn't mind seeing any of those guys, whether it's George Pickens, Chris Olave, or Garrett Wilson. Personally, if in the order I would take them, I probably would go Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and then Christian Watson. But I wouldn't mind either of those guys as well. So I do want to kind of get you guys, because I know I kind of been rambling. I kind of want to get into the chat and see what you guys are thinking as well. But those are my top guys, like in my top 5. I know I gave you guys a lot of names, but those are the top 5 guys that I'm looking at number 8. And also with our second round pick, our first second round pick. I don't know if any of those guys, as far as the wide receivers, will fall that far down. Any of these guys I'm mentioning will fall into the second round. But these are the guys that I'm looking at 8 for the Falcons, where I wouldn't be upset if the Falcons took any of these guys that I mentioned. But with that being said, I do want to jump back into the chat and see what you guys are talking about as well, because I know a couple of more people may have joined us while I was rambling. Finley Fletcher, what's going on, man? He says, great list. I appreciate it, man. I do a lot of different breakdowns, but I hope you guys have been enjoying the prospect videos I've been dropping. And hopefully you guys have also been doing some mock drafts of your own, or maybe you guys have been looking. So you guys can drop in the chat if you guys have some draft list of your own of players that y'all think we should take at 8. I'm kind of leaving this night open to just draft talk, because the draft is right around the corner. And to me, this is a huge draft for our Falcons. This is going to be one of the biggest drafts, draft nights or drafts in general. The next couple of days when they do the first through the 6th round, this is going to be a huge draft for our Falcons as far as rebuilding this team and establishing an identity for this team. I really feel like this draft is going to be huge for Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith moving forward. So they're definitely going to have to hit in this draft based off of the moves that we've made so far in free agency and us going in a different direction now with Matt Ryan no longer being the face of the franchise. But with that being said, I do want to jump in the chat really quick. Make You Fumble, I just say what's up to you tonight, man. What's going on? He says Neal signs with Bucks. Told y'all we should have signed him. Yeah, I didn't see that, but I'm assuming you're talking about Keanu Neal. I'm not afraid of Keanu Neal. I like Keanu Neal's game. He's physical, but after the injuries that he had, those nasty leg injuries, I think it was either Achilles or ACL. Once you have those type of injuries, it's hard to get back to having that lateral quickness and things of that nature. I do think that Keanu Neal is, I used to call him the hitman. He is a very physical specimen. is one of those guys. If you come across the middle, you know, he's gonna lay the lumber. But at this point, Keanu Neal has lost his ability to cover in the secondary, and he mentioned that he doesn't no longer wants to play linebacker, that he wants to play safety. But I don't think at this point he still has the athleticism that he had when he first was drafted by the Falcons. But when he was in his prime or at the top of his game, I think Keanu Neal, he was one of my favorite Falcons players, definitely. But he's definitely a tone setter. Millie Mills says, "Jew, you still doing the show in the morning or no?" I might keep that show going as well. If y'all want me to go back to doing shows on Tuesdays, I might start doing the show on Tuesdays as well. Like I did the show, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday when I was off work. So maybe if that's something you guys enjoy, I'll probably put it in my community tab and see what the fans think. But I might go back to doing shows on Tuesday as well. If y'all enjoy midday shows or Tuesday morning shows. Michael Robinson said, "Happy birthday to y'all, man. I appreciate it." Yeah, Aries run my household pretty much. Me, my wife, and my youngest son, we all Aries. So shout outs to all of the April babies in the house. Millie Mills, he says Davis at 8, and I completely agree. I would love to see Jordan Davis at 8. I really think he's the bona fide number 8 pick, you know, for the Falcons because of the status of Grady Jarrett, where we don't know if he's going to be here moving forward. I always say you build your defense from the inside out. So I'm big on the trenches. You guys know, if you guys have been watching my channel for any period of time, you guys know I'm huge on drafting the trenches, being able to stop the run, being able to affect the quarterback. And what's going on to Ultra Shadow, man? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight as well. He says, new era, new team. Yeah, most definitely. This is a whole new era here in Atlanta. And we've seen, like I said, now that Matt Ryan is gone, we have a whole new face, you know, of this team. So we're definitely going to have to set identity and set the tone early. Kobe, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me tonight. I don't know if I ever seen you in the chat, but I appreciate you joining me tonight. Tony Wright, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining as well tonight. I hope all is going well. Wallace Smith, what's going on to everybody in the chat, man? I appreciate you guys. My brother-in-law in the building, what's going on, Darius? I appreciate you. Bully says, I agree. What's going on, Bully? I hope you sound like you liking my list, man. I appreciate it. Pat Norris, what's going on, man? He said, what's up? What's good, homie? I appreciate you joining tonight as well. Nathan Floyd, it says, just getting here. What's up, everyone? What did I miss? You haven't missed much of anything. I'm just talking draft talk, and I gave my top 5 players I think that the Falcons should draft, but I really gave y'all a list of about 8 to 10 guys. But that was like my top 5. Bean Bambino, what's going on, man? He says, what's up, bro? Go Falcons, man. What's happening? I appreciate you joining tonight as well. And this was something that I could have talked about in Atlanta Falcons news. You guys know that I love dropping the Atlanta Falcons news, and I'll do a breakdown on Germain Ifedi. We did pick him up today, who's an offensive tackle, which I think is great for our team because it's going to create competition in camp, in training camp, and during the preseason. So I definitely will drop a video probably tomorrow on Germain Ifedi, but I did see that he was picked up today. I appreciate you dropping that knowledge, Millie Mills. Tony Wright says, I do not believe that the Falcons are rebuilding. Look at our defense right now. If you look at our projected starters right now, this isn't a team rebuilding. And I agree. I think it is a rebuild because we no longer have a franchise quarterback here. So I definitely think that it's a rebuild. But rebuild doesn't mean that you can't win. I mean, look at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are a team that should give the Falcons hope because just a couple years ago, they were drafting top pick in the draft. Joe Burrow was the number 1 draft pick. And I think last year was his second year in the league, and they were in the Super Bowl. So, and a lot of people were saying that they were in rebuild mode. So just because you use the word rebuild, I know Terry Fontenot, Arthur Smith, and Arthur Blank and all of those guys, they've been kind of afraid to use the word rebuild, because a lot of times when teams use the word rebuild, that means that the team isn't competing. They're not trying to win. They're kind of just tanking the season and things of that nature. I don't feel like the Falcons are going to come into this season and try to tank the season, even if they use the word rebuild. I just think that at this point, we're reshaping this team because we've pretty much gotten rid of pretty much all of the Dan Quinn, Thomas Dimitroff era players and guys that have been franchise players or guys that's been around for a really, really long time, like Matt Ryan over a decade. So at this point, if you want to call it rebuild, retool, at the same time, I still feel like this team can compete, whether you use the word rebuild or not. And you guys can go ahead and also start dropping your questions in the chat. I'm trying to scroll down a little bit here. And Bully says good rushing on quarterbacks will hopefully get us more turnovers due to the new secondary strength. And I like this statement right here, and I definitely think it will. I think that a lot of people are sleeping on this Falcons secondary. If you guys have been checking out Mad Mike's channel, he's been dropping a lot of videos talking about this Atlanta Falcons secondary. You guys know that he's a huge Isaiah Oliver fan, but he's a huge, we're all huge AJ Terrell fans. And this defense on this back end is looking really, really scary. I had one of the fans or one of my subscribers asked me to do a video on D Alford, and I'll be dropping a video on him later this week. He's the guy that we got out of the CFL, and he's a cornerback as well that I forgot we signed, I think, back in January. But I went and watched some tape on this guy and some highlight reels and things of that nature, and he looks like a guy that's really, really good as well, coming out of the CFL. So you guys be on the lookout for that video as well. But I definitely believe the front end of the defense will create turnovers for the back end, because that quarterback's going to have to get that ball out of his hands fast. And if he doesn't, if we can get pressure on the quarterback fast, you can have your corners cheat a little bit, and try to pick off a ball and things of that nature. If you get into the quarterback, that's when tip balls happen, where you're able to get interceptions. And having a good defensive line is a recipe for success. So I'm always been a believer in the front end being the dominant part of your defense. I'm not a huge guy of building from back to front. I believe in building front to back. So starting with your front seven and working your way back. But this Falcons secondary is scary. I mean, picking up Casey Hayward, I think that's going to be one of the biggest free agent signings that no one's really talking about in the media. But I do think that now we have legitimately 2 number 1 corners, because Casey Hayward is a number 1 corner, a bona fide number 1 corner, and AJ Terrell is a bona fide number 1 corner. So it's going to be really, really tough, especially when we, get in press man coverage situations where Dean Pease dials up that pressure. Now you have guys you can really rely upon to hold up in man-to-man coverage. And we've seen that last year kind of with Fabian Monroe, where he kind of struggled in man-to-man situations in coverage, where he got a lot of penalties and things of that nature. I think that that's going to change this year. And I think that this team will be better getting off the field on third downs with these better cover corners, these man-to-man corners that we have. The Smoke says, like the stream, people 34 watching with 10 likes. Yeah, I appreciate that, The Smoke. Yeah, y'all definitely, please hit that like, hit that subscribe button, share this content out. But I completely agree. I appreciate you, The Smoke, for, getting the algorithm going. I appreciate that, man. And I appreciate you joining. And William Amy says, if I'm the Falcons, I'm getting wide receiver under we don't have nobody outside of Kyle Pitts. And I agree. I agree with you, William Amy. Like, we don't have really no weapons. We don't really have any weapons other than Kyle Pitts and Cordero Patterson. I mean, we signed a couple guys like the Alden Tates, which I think is a solid signing. We have Frank Darby. We recently signed Demir Bird, who's a guy that's, you know, a speedster. So we have weapons. We've signed some weapons, but I still think you don't have the number one guy unless you're gonna make Kyle Pitts the number one wide receiver. You really don't have that bona fide guy at that receiver position. So I feel like regardless of whether the Falcons take a wide receiver with that eighth pick, we're gonna have to go out and draft a wide receiver. So I expect the wide receiver to come off the board either in the first round or the second round with the first second round pick. I don't expect the Falcons to not draft a wide receiver within the first two picks that we have. I definitely think the Falcons understand that Marcus Mariota is going to need as many weapons as possible to be successful, and I definitely think that they're going to, you know, they're definitely going to take a wide receiver early in this draft, whether they go edge rusher first or wide receiver first. It's going to be a wide receiver coming off the board, especially because this is a really deep and talented wide receiver draft. So I definitely think so. And like I said, I have opened it up because we are like almost 30 minutes into the show. You guys know I end promptly at 9 p.m. So I definitely want to get to you guys questions that you may have, whether it's about the draft or whether it's just about the Falcons in general, or maybe it's just about your NFL team. I definitely will answer those questions as well. And Pat Norris says, "What team would you trade with, and what would be the compensation?" I don't think that we need to trade. Actually, if I'm the Falcons, unless they don't believe in nobody there at 8, I'm not trading. I'm taking a player at 8 because I don't think that Thibodeau or Jordan Davis is going to fall too far in this draft. Like I think those guys are going to be taken high in this draft. Like the bona fide edge rushers in this draft are going to get taken high in this draft. So if you're looking at the Kayvon Thibodeaus, if you're looking at the Jordan Davis may drop a little bit, but I think that Jordan Davis balling out at the combine really, you know, helped his draft status. And I definitely think that he'll be a guy that's going to go off the board a little bit higher than a lot of people think. I think Jordan Davis going into the combine before he had those crazy numbers at the combine was going to be a guy that's going to get drafted like in the 20s. But now I can see Jordan Davis getting drafted anywhere into like the teens to maybe even the top 10, depending on what team needs his, you know, needs his services. Personally, I think that the Falcons should plunge. If he's there, I'm taking him. William Amy says Drake London or Chris Olave. Drake London if I'm the Falcons. Depending on your team, and that's kind of what I was just stating. If it's the Falcons, I'm taking Drake London because he's the perfect fit as far as size, physicality, a guy that'll be able to block, a guy that you can line up anywhere, whether it's the slot, whether it's outside. And he's a guy that's going to win 50-50 matchups. And I think having him in the red zone, both him and Kyle Pitts with that size, I really think it'll be hard to stop that duo or that tandem because of their size, because you can't double team everybody. And that was something that I said before we drafted Kyle Pitts, because I thought we were going to have Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and Hayden Hurst and all of those guys. I felt like if you have, you know, all of those talented wide receivers and tight ends, it's impossible to double team and triple team, you know, everybody. So Drake London will get a lot of one-on-one matchups this season if he's selected by the Falcons, because teams are going to double team and triple team Kyle Pitts, kind of like we saw with Julio. So it's going to take a lot of attention away from the others. So the Cordell Pattersons, the Drake Londons, the Zacchaeuses, Damiere Byrd, those guys are going to have to be the unsung heroes of this team, because they're going to triple and double team Kyle Pitts. If we thought he drew a lot of attention last year, being that he was a rookie and made the Pro Bowl, and he kind of balled out last season with over 1,000 yards receiving, he's going to be a team on everybody's hit list this year, because now everybody has tape on Kyle Pitts. So you need to get Kyle Pitts a running mate. And I think Drake London would be the guy I would go with. You can't go wrong, because Chris Olave is a guy. If you want a Calvin Ridley type that's a elite route runner, speed, take the top off the defense and make the home run play, you can't go wrong with Chris Olave either. But for this offense, I'm taking Drake London if I'm the Falcons. And let me scroll down a little bit. And Bubba Gump says Karlaftis is a nasty SOB. Yes. Karlaftis is a guy that a lot of people are kind of overlooking out of Purdue, but he's a guy that I like because you can use him at multiple positions. Not only can he play edge rusher, but he's a guy, if you go watch tape of him when he was at Purdue, he played the 3 tech as well on the inside in certain situations. And he's a really big physical guy. He's not going to wow you with his speed and his athleticism, but he's a guy that's similar to a Trey Hendrickson that played with the Cincinnati Bengals and the Saints a couple years ago. He's a guy that's high energy, a guy that's going to be able to make plays, both stopping the run, and he's going to be a guy that can make plays on the quarterback. So I definitely don't think you can go wrong with a Karlaftis. I know a lot of people may not like him because he's not that tweener type guy who can speed rush and stuff like that, but I'm definitely taking a Karlaftis as well. I'm a huge Karlaftis fan as well. William Amy says Kyle Hamilton is a steal for us. I don't think Kyle Hamilton would be on the board, but if he is, he's a guy that's really solid at safety. He's the best safety in this draft out of Notre Dame. A lot of people have questions about Kyle Hamilton because of his combine, where he didn't perform well at the combine. But I seen tape on Kyle Hamilton, and if the Falcons want to take a secondary guy, I wouldn't mind taking Kyle Hamilton as well. He's like a Cam Chancellor, similar to Cam Chancellor with his size 6'3", 6'4", but he has more range than a Cam Chancellor as far as sideline to sideline speed and being able to, ball hawk and be able to play man-to-man coverage like a corner. Kyle Hamilton is a guy that you can use like the ultimate Swiss Army knife. So I wouldn't be upset with him either. I just prefer the Falcons draft the trenches because I really don't feel like the Falcons need another safety. You got Richie Grant in the draft in the second round last year. You got Jalen Hawkins in the back end who performed really well last year before he got injured. Then you got Eric Harris still. So you really don't need a Kyle Hamilton necessarily. And you have a lot of corners like Isaiah Oliver who can play that rover safety / corner position. So you really don't need a safety in this draft. So I kind of shy away from Kyle Hamilton for the mere fact that our front seven isn't what it needs to be. And I feel like if you can't stop the run, having good secondary means nothing if you can't get off the field. And last year, teams kind of bludgeoned us, but just running the ball, right up the gut of our defense. So we got to get stronger on the defensive line. We got to stop the run. That's the foundation to a great defense is stopping the run and playing, being able to rush the passer. If you can't do those two things, having an elite secondary means nothing. And Make You Fumble says, rumor is Ridder at 8. I've seen a couple of articles saying that Ridder and a couple tweets saying that Ridder could be a guy that's taken at 8. I think 8 is way too rich and too high for a Desmond Ridder. The reason I say that is I think Desmond Ridder will be a guy that if we really like him that much, he'll be there in the second round with our second round pick. If the Falcons really like him, I wouldn't take Desmond Ridder at 8. Not saying that I don't think he's a solid quarterback because I think with some tutelage and with some development, Desmond Ridder could be a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. But I don't think that the Falcons should take him at 8. I mean, it's way too many great prospects in this draft for them to fool around and take a quarterback that high. Even Malik Willis, and I'm a huge Malik Willis fan. He's the number 1 quarterback on my draft board for the Falcons, but I wouldn't even take Malik Willis at 8, to be honest with you guys. If I'm the Falcons, I'm shying away from a quarterback as well. I'm basically building this roster, and that's something that we've said numerous times, but you need to build the trenches, build the offensive line, build this defense, build these weapons around the quarterback. And then once you have the foundation set, you drop the quarterback right into a great situation in the middle of everything and let him be the centerpiece. But you build the team around him. I don't want the quarterback coming in with a team in shambles, with no offensive line, with nothing. We've seen teams that's done that, and it pretty much ended really badly for those teams that decided that they were going to just draft a quarterback with a bad offensive line, no weapons. And that's what the Indianapolis Colts did with Andrew Luck, which now Andrew Luck is out of the league because he had a bunch of injuries because he was drafted in a bad situation. No offensive line, really no weapons, and it got them in trouble. So if I'm the Falcons, I'm shying away from the quarterback, and I'm waiting at least a year or so, and just let Marcus Mariota, run this thing and develop Felipe Franks. You drafted the quarterback last year. Unless like I said, unless they fall in love with one of these quarterbacks, I would just hold off on the quarterback position and develop what you have and see what Marcus Mariota can give you, and give Marcus Mariota and the quarterbacks that you have weapons. Let's see here. And Bubba Gump said exactly what I was thinking. You can grab Ridder at 43. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, Ridder will be a guy that'll be around, I think, in the second round. You don't need to take Ridder at 8. That's way too early. But there are rumors out that they're saying that he could be a guy that the Falcons really like and could take. Let's see here. Todrick Davis, what's going on, man? He says, would you trade the 8th pick for a DK Metcalf? Yep, I would do it. I would trade him every day of the week. I would trade that 8th pick for DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is a Pro Bowler, one of the better young wide receivers in the game, and a physical freak. Like, I'm talking about Drake London's. He's a guy that's like a Kyle Pitts, 6'3", 6'4", physical specimen, can pretty much do it all. And if I'm the Seahawks, I don't even know why they're thinking about getting rid of a DK Metcalf. I would just go ahead and pay him, because he's a guy that you can build around. He's one of those generational type talents. If I'm the Seahawks, I'm not letting go of DK Metcalf. But if they wanted to do that trade straight up, the 8th pick for DK Metcalf, I would do it. But I don't think that the Seahawks would do that. I mean, they know how great of a player DK Metcalf is. And I think that they will want more compensation for a DK Metcalf. And then you'll have to pay DK Metcalf. Next year, we will have to give him the bag if the Falcons did that. But he's a bona fide number 1 wide receiver, and he's proven. So I definitely would take him. I mean, if they wanted to give it up for the 8th pick, I would do that in a heartbeat. YMFO Jamal says, Jew, what up, Falcons fan? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight as well. And I'm trying to scroll down a little bit here. You guys can keep dropping your questions as well. I don't want to miss anybody as well, though, so I'm trying to scroll down slowly here. And let's see. Tony Wright says Isaiah Oliver as our number 3 nickel cornerback, cornerback Darren Hall as our 4th corner, Avery Williams as our 5th corner. And if we look at our defense, everyone is a younger player except for cornerback Hayward. Yeah, I mean, we're loaded. And then you got to even throw in there D. Alford. He's a guy that we just picked up in January, and I'm going to be doing a video on him. But I was really impressed with his tape and what I seen him do in the CFL. He's a guy that's a ball hawk, fast, physical, is not afraid to hit and tackle as a corner. So I think we're set at cornerback. Like, if I'm the Falcons, and I know a lot of people, don't believe in this. They believe because you're in the passing league, you need to draft corners every year. Personally, if I'm the Falcons, you drafted corners last year. So, in Avery and Darren Hall. So if I'm the Falcons, I'm not drafting a single corner in this draft unless you just want to, but we don't need to. I mean, you just named it. You have AJ Terrell, you have Casey Hayward, Isaiah Oliver, Darren Hall, Avery Williams, D. Alford. Like, that's 6 cornerbacks right there. So I don't see a reason why the Falcons should even be thinking about a corner in this draft. I wouldn't even be thinking about them. That would be the last thing on on the needs list. As many holes as this Falcons team has, and as many needs as we have, the cornerback position is not one of the positions that we need, or that I would even be considering. Even if Sauce is there, Sauce Gardner, I know a lot of people like him out of Cincinnati. I'm not drafting any corners in this draft. I'm not even looking at, if you're looking at a corner, it's going to be like with the 6th round or 5th round. I'm not looking at none of these corners. We have way too many needs to be looking at corners. And Bubba Gump says Jordan Davis or Karlaftis, please. Yeah, both of those guys, you couldn't go wrong. I'm taking Jordan Davis over Karlaftis, but you can't go wrong. Both guys play in the trenches. Both guys are, beasts. So I wouldn't mind seeing either one of those guys. And Dre Murphy put his list here. He says, my top 5 picks for us this year: Jermaine Johnson, Christian Watson, Aiden Hutchinson, Kevon Thibodeau, George Karlaftis, Devontae Wyatt, Trevon Walker, Travis Jones. Yeah, I like all of these guys that you have on your list. Devontae Wyatt, I think, is underrated. I didn't realize how good of a player Devontae Wyatt was until I went and watched some of his tape out of Georgia. And he's a guy that's a beast as well. So if the Falcons somehow can't get Jordan Davis because they decide to take, say, Drake London in the first round, if Devontae Wyatt somehow slides into the second round, he would be a guy that I want the Falcons to take a look at, because he's a guy that's a beast as well at that nose tackle position. Jonathan Bell. Let's see here. He says, what's your thoughts on them saying we got the top 10th strongest schedule? Yeah, our schedule this year is tough. It's really tough because we got a lot of playoff teams that were playoff teams last year on this schedule, but I'm not necessarily a believer in strength of schedule, meaning, any team can beat any team any given Sunday. We seen that last year. You had the Jaguars beating teams last year. They had no reason, no excuse for beating. I think they beat the Colts like the last game of the season to eliminate the Colts from playoff contention. I mean, you have, it's any given Sunday in the NFL. It's parity in the NFL. The NFL is probably one of the only professional sports where a weaker team can beat a stronger team, because you got to just kind of be hitting on all cylinders. And football is a team sport. It's the ultimate team sport. So I'm not really a big believer in strength of schedule and, teams, the schedule being hard or whatever, because you got to think about it like this: injuries and things of that nature is going to happen when the season starts. And that kind of knocks down some of the teams that you think, a lot of the games that we may be looking at now and saying that this is going to be a tough game heading into the season. You never know what's going to happen. Like last year, you had COVID, where a lot of guys were on the COVID list and things of that nature during some weeks. But you also got to factor in injuries. You never know who's going to get injured. You never know, what can happen from week to week. So, the schedule looks tough now, but, you never know going into the season how things are going to pan out. On paper, it looks tough, but like I said, it's any given Sunday. And there's always that surprise team. Like I said, last year, the surprise team was the Bengals. Nobody said that the Bengals were even going to be playoff contenders. They end up winning their division. And, the AFC North is one of the tougher divisions with the Ravens, the Browns, and the Steelers. And I don't think anybody had the Cincinnati Bengals, rising up in that situation, in that particular division last year, and being able to, go on a magical run and get to the Super Bowl. So we could be that team this year. You never know. Let's see here. Billy Mill says, Jermaine Johnson or Karlaftis. I kind of like Karlaftis a tad bit more because he's Greek. Yeah, man. I think Karlaftis is better in stopping the run. And I think he's a guy that plays with a high motor. So it just depends on what type of player you're looking for. If you're looking for a guy that can do multiple things, like more of an outside linebacker type, meaning be able to spot a quarterback, be able to drop in the flats and all of that, then you probably are looking at a Jermaine Johnson type. But if you want a guy that's just a pure like defensive end, pass rusher, stop the run, I'll take George Karlaftis. I think George Karlaftis may have he plays with a higher motor, or a hotter motor than a guy like Jermaine Johnson. So I think I'll go with Karlaftis over Jermaine Johnson as well. But it just depends on what Dean Pease is asking this particular player to do, like what their responsibilities are. If you want a guy that's more athletic and quick and fast and things of that nature, then you'll take Jermaine Johnson. But if you want just a guy that's strictly like a defensive end type, that's going to set the edge, play the run and rush the passer, then I'll probably take George Karlaftis as well. And let's see. And Millie Mill says Watson's going in the first. Yeah, I think Christian Watson's going to be a first round draft pick. I agree with you. He's another guy that his draft stock rose, or he did really well in the combine. I think he ran like a 4.3 40, and he's a guy that's like 6'4", and he did test really, really well. So yeah, Christian Watson is not going to be a guy that's going to stay on the draft board long. He's definitely going to be a guy that's going to be a first round draft pick. So if the Falcons like him, they're going to have to take him in the first round. Tony Wright says there are going to be really good wide receivers, outside linebackers, D ends, O linemen, and running backs in rounds 2 through 4 that will be able to draft, as we have 5 picks in those 3 rounds. I mean, yeah, this draft is pretty deep. Like when it comes to running back, it's a pretty deep draft. When it comes to wide receivers, it's a really deep draft. So from what I've seen so far, this is a really deep draft when it comes to those. Now, as far as the edge rushers, I think it kind of drops off. It is a pretty deep draft in edge rushers and guys in the trenches as well, but I don't think you'll get the same production out of some of the guys. Like I think it's kind of a drop off after like the Kayvon Thibodeaux, the Aiden Hutchinsons. Those guys to me are like the cream of the crop, the blue chip type guys. Travon Walker, those are the blue chip type guys. Then it kind of drops off with some of the guys that are like second, third round prospects. But you never know. There's always that guy, even in the draft, like we saw with Grady Jarrett when the Falcons took him, where he had no business being drafted. As like if you go back and redraft, Grady Jarrett in his draft, he'll be a first round draft pick based off of the production that he's put out since he's been in the league. So it's going to be key for Terry Fontenot in this draft to hit on some of those players in the later rounds. Like you can't take all of these guys or trade up and get all these multiple first round draft picks. You're going to have to hit on some of these second round, third round draft picks. We traded Matt Ryan away for a third round pick. So you're going to have to hit on some of these guys in these later rounds, to be successful. And this year, I think this is a really important draft for the Falcons because we're going to have to get guys that can come in and that can help this team from day one. Like you're going to have to get guys that can come in and be starters. Like if we get an edge rusher, he's going to be a starter like from day one because we let go of Dante Fowler. So if you take Kayvon Thibodeaux, if you take one of these guys that are, the top edge rushers, the Jermaine Johnsons, these guys are going to have to start from day one and hit the ground running. So that's why I say with the first round draft pick, I'm not fooling around with like a quarterback or something like that. You got to get a guy that's going to be a bona fide starter. They don't necessarily have to be a guy that gets you 10 sacks within the first season, but they got to be a guy that can come in and contribute from day one. So I feel like with that first pick, you got to go out and get a tone setter. And that's why I say you take a Jordan Davis because you can't go wrong with his size, his speed, and his dominant ability. Same thing with the guys that I mentioned on the edge. You got to get a guy that can come in from day one and give you something. You can't afford to bring in, a Ritter or a Malik Willis that's going to sit back, sit behind Marcus Mariota. You got to get guys in here that can help this team be successful. And let me scroll down here. And Tony Wright, I'm not too sure who Isaiah Thomas is in the 5th round. You're talking about if we could possibly draft him. So I definitely will add him to my draft board, and try to go watch some tape on him. But I haven't heard the name Isaiah Thomas as far as in this draft. But I'm assuming he's one of the guys that's not pegged as like one of the top players in his position. But I definitely can go check him out. Let's see here. And shouts out to my boy Mad Mike in the chat. He says, I'm not touching any of these quarterbacks. And I completely agree with my bro here. I'm not touching any quarterbacks in this draft. I mean, it's not necessary. You don't need a quarterback in this draft unless you just think that Malik Willis or one of these guys are your franchise quarterback moving forward. To me, that's the only way I can see the Falcons taking a quarterback. To me, it doesn't make sense to take like a Ritter or a backup quarterback that you think is like a project and you don't believe that they can be a franchise guy, because I feel like you did that last year with taking Felipe Franks. He's a guy that everybody said was a project. He was a guy that this regime drafted. So if you want to just have a quarterback that you can work with and that's mobile, because everybody wants a mobile quarterback, we already have one. Felipe Franks can sit behind Marcus Mariota, learn from Marcus Mariota. I don't know if Felipe Franks is the franchise or the future guy necessarily, but he's a guy that you can, let sit behind Marcus Mariota and kind of try to develop. I don't understand why we need a quarterback in this draft. Like I said, unless you think he's the guy moving forward, after, you'll have Marcus Mariota for this 1 year, be the bridge guy. And then next year you let Malik Willis or that quarterback be the franchise guy moving forward or the starter. I don't see a reason why you take a quarterback in this draft. I really don't. And this is a question that I actually answered on my last show. Pat Norris, he said, do you feel that Mariota can be the Falcons franchise QB for us? I definitely think that Marcus Mariota, if you put the proper pieces around him, he definitely could be one of those guys. I really feel like you won't know what Marcus Mariota can be until you give him weapons to succeed. So you're going to have to build the offensive line. You're going to have to build a defense. And you're going to have to give him weapons to really find out, is he or can he be the franchise guy, the future, be the face of the Atlanta Falcons. But, I mean, he could be. He has a talent. I said that in my last live show. Like, he has a talent. I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons made the playoffs because of Marcus Mariota's play, if they draft him the weapons that he needs and, they build the defense. I definitely think Marcus Mariota has a chance to resurrect his career. Antonio Holloway says, love the show, Jew. Man, I appreciate it, man. I hope you guys will go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button for your boy, so we can get this, get the algorithm going and things of that nature, so we can get this out to as many Falcons fans, NFL fans as possible. But I appreciate you tuning in as always, Antonio. I appreciate it, man. And Jerry says, I think that Alford may be a good nickel. Yeah, I think Alford is a guy who can be a nickel or outside corner. Like, I'm really impressed with him. And I think he's definitely going to make this Falcons team. And I think he's going to be a sleeper in this. He's a guy that nobody's talking about because he kind of signed with the team during the playoffs, I think. In January, he signed and nobody really was paying attention to him signing with us. But I think that he could be a guy that's really, really good because he has a chip on his shoulder. He was a guy that kind of got it out of the mud, was one of those guys that played in the CFL, but he helped his team win the Grey Cup or win the championship on the CFL level. And I think he's a guy that could definitely be one of the cornerbacks, a future cornerback of the Atlanta Falcons for years to come. But I definitely think he can be a guy that's going to compete with Isaiah Oliver. He's going to compete with Darren Hall. All of those guys that play on the inside, I think he's going to compete with those guys. I think AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward, those are the top dogs. And Isaiah Oliver is the top dog at that nickel position as well. But I think Alfred's going to surprise a lot of people. I really think he's going to surprise a lot of people. Let's see here. Scroll down a little bit. And Mike says Arthur Smith may not have time to wait on players to develop. Must draft someone who can contribute immediately. Exactly. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, they have to go out in this regime and set the tone. And they got to bring in guys that can help this team be successful right away. I feel like with first round picks, you don't have time to mess around with these first round picks. Like, first round picks, to me, in my book, are guys that you can come in instantly and help your team be successful. They don't necessarily have to come in and be the best player at their position, but they have to be a guy that can contribute right away. And I think if you draft like a Kayvon Thibodeaux, to me, he can give you between 5 and 7 sacks in his first, his initial rookie season. If you get a guy like a Jordan Davis, he can be a guy that's going to dominate the trenches in the run game. He's going to make Grady Jarrett's life a lot easier. He's going to make our linebackers' jobs a lot easier. So he'll be a guy that you can play from day one because of his size, his strength. He's a grown man already. Like, he has his NFL body. So you bring in a Jordan Davis or one of these dominant guys like we saw with Kyle Pitts last season. Kyle Pitts is the epitome of a first-round pick. He came right in, boom, hit the ground running. Pretty much the best wide receiver or weapon on our offense last season, other than Cordell Patterson. So that's what I want to see out of a first-round pick. Not somebody you're going to have to develop and fool around with. Like, your first-round draft picks are players that are supposed to make impact immediately. They're not guys that are supposed to sit and wait, and, we don't have time for that. Usually first-round picks are going to teams that are bad for a reason, and they're taken high for a reason, and usually that's to play immediately to help improve, the team from last year. So I definitely think, you need to go out and get guys that can contribute right away with those top picks. And this is a good point by Tony Wright here. He says, in 2022, D.M. Marlon Davidson must step up and be that player that I saw at the University of Auburn. The Falcons took a high gamble on him in the second round. And I completely agree with you, Tony. Marlon Davidson, you guys know I'm an Auburn Tigers fan, War Eagle in college football. But I definitely think that Marlon Davidson is a guy that's going to have to step up this year, or he's really going to be, he's skating on thin ice. I'll say that with these injuries and stuff like that. He's going to have to be healthy this season. He made a couple brilliant plays last year with the interception for a touchdown against Tom Brady. He had his first sack against Tom Brady last year. But this year, he's going to have to step his game up, like, all the way. He's going to have to be the next man up, next man up, next man on deck. As we always say, next man up. He's the next man up. So he's going to have to be that guy that's going to get pressure on the quarterback. And he's going to have to play, because his biggest issue is not competing and being able to dominate when he plays. His biggest issue is remaining healthy. He's a guy that's battled injuries, battled COVID last year, and he just hasn't been on the field and been available consistently. So he has to be more consistent of being available. And we always say the best ability is availability. So if you're not available, if you're always injured and nicked up and can't play, he's treading on thin ice as far as, getting another contract after his rookie contract is up. He definitely is going to have to step up and prove that he deserves to be on this Falcons team. But I definitely think that he has that nasty mindset. And I do think that he can be a guy that can rush the passer and can stop the run. He's a guy that you can mix in on certain situations. And you guys know I believe in strength in numbers on the defensive line. Let's see here. And Brian Peoples, what's going on, man? I didn't get to say what's up to you tonight, man. I hope you're enjoying the show so far, and I hope you are having a great week. But he says, I'm not drafting a quarterback or DBs. Yeah, those are the two positions I really don't feel like. DBs, I'm definitely not touching a DB. If they decide to take a quarterback, that's their business. But I don't see a reason why we should take a DB DB or quarterback. Unless they're the future franchise guy, I'm not fooling with them. I don't want no projects, guys. We just bringing in the fool around. Like, we have, unless you drafting them in like the third round or something like that, I'm not taking them with those top picks. The first round, second round, I'm not fooling with a quarterback unless they're the future. Like, unless they're the future franchise guy. Nathan says, can we please stop signing ex-Bears? No, I mean, at this point, you might as well get ready to see more Titans players, ex-Bear players, anybody that has familiarity with Dean Pease, Arthur Smith, or the front office, Ryan Pace and those guys. Get ready to see those type of players on this team, especially this year, because we don't have any money. So they basically had to lean on one year deals again. And if you guys seen Arthur Blank, where he was talking on NFL Network. He basically said like it really hurt the Falcons to have to let go of Foyer, to let go of Devondre Campbell a couple years ago because we didn't have the money to pay those guys. And we heard Terry Fontenot say at the end of last season that our biggest priority in free agency was trying to bring back our own talent, and we weren't able to do that. So I think that was one of the biggest reasons that they moved off of Matt Ryan, was because we had to let go of our star, let go of some of those star players in free agency. Like Foyer is a star linebacker, so Pro Bowl caliber linebacker. So that really hurt them to have to let him go. And that's the reason we're seeing these 1-year deals with future, former Bear players, former Titan players, is because we don't have the money. Like the cap is still in shambles right now. Until next season, we really don't have much cap. And DJ, I appreciate the super sticker, $4.99. I appreciate the super chat, man. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys, but I definitely appreciate you supporting the channel. If you guys want to be a part of my Jew Talk Sports membership as well, you guys definitely can do that as well. Just hit the join tab here on the channel if you want to support the channel. You can leave the super stickers, and also you can click the thanks tabs, which is also like a super sticker underneath my videos. When I do videos, if you comment, it'll also allow you to do the super stickers, and also allow you to do the thanks, where you can actually leave $1.99 super chat, or $4.99 super chat. So I appreciate that, man. Let's see here. Ghost Peppers says sleeper, and I don't know how to say this guy's name, so I'm not going to even try to butcher it. But he says this guy played at Iowa State. It looks like he says 6'6", 320 pounds. Yeah, he sounds like a guy that I would like on our team. You guys know I like guys that have size, and guys that have that the fat boys. I like guys that can come in and dominate in the trenches, cornbread fed. We need those guys on this Falcons team. We need those guys that have those hot dogs on the back of their neck, if you want to call it. We need those guys. We need those guys that's cornbread fed and that can stop the run. So if we can get those guys that can stop the run and push the pocket and control the trenches, I want them on my Falcons team. Terry Mitchell, what's going on tonight, man? I appreciate you joining. He says, "What up, Jew? These Falcons are going to surprise a lot of people this year and make many believers." I agree. I think they're gonna make a lot of people believe this year. I mean, we're playing with house money, so that's one thing that I like about this Falcons team, is there's no expectations. Nobody knows how good this team is going to be, and there's really no pressure on this team. Let's just be real. It's no pressure going into this season on the players. I feel like if anything, there's more pressure on Terry Fontenot and the front office on hitting on the right players in the draft and trying to set the foundation. And it's more more pressure on Arthur Smith as a coach of getting these guys to jail. But other than that, there's no pressure really on these players, because from what I'm seeing, I think CBS or somebody put out like the win totals, overs and unders for the Falcons, and it was like at 5.5 wins. So we won 7 games last year. So that just goes to show you that the bar is really low for expectations in the media for the Falcons. Now that we've moved off of Matt Ryan, they don't believe this Falcons team is even going to compete. They think we're going to be at the bottom of the division, the bottom of the NFC. And I like when the Falcons can just go up under the radar. Nobody's really paying us no attention, because that's how we made that big Super Bowl run in 2016. Nobody thought the Falcons were going to be able to do anything. And they kind of just, went under the radar and surprised a lot of people. But let's see. I'll answer maybe 2 more questions, and then it's 9 o'clock. It's after 9 o'clock. So let me see if I can answer somebody's question that I haven't answered tonight. And I want to say what's up to Eric, man. What's going on, Eric McDowell? I see you in the chat, man. I appreciate you joining and consistently watching the videos and things of that nature and commenting. I appreciate you, man. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I see a question that I haven't answered tonight. Let's see. I think I may have answered one of your questions already, Nathan, but I'll answer this question. It says the Titans guys, I figured would happen with Smith and Pease here. Someone needs to stop Pace though. Oh, okay. You were referring to the us taking all of these people, all these players from the Titans and Bears. Yeah, like I said, get ready to see a lot more of that. Like we're going to continue to bring in guys that are familiar with this regime and guys that have something to prove, that's willing to play on the cheap for a 1-year deal and like the veteran minimum. We don't have a lot of money to just be throwing money out there. And I think that may be it for tonight. I don't see any other questions here. Let's see. He says Brett Favre, Steve Young, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, or a young Matty Ice. I still wouldn't draft them at 8. With this O line and the D line, have to build a team with better line pieces. And I agree. And this is the perfect segue to get ready to end the show tonight. Xavier, I appreciate this statement, and I completely agree. And that's pretty much the gist of what I've been saying pretty much the whole night here on the show is if you don't have the pieces in the trenches, we've seen with Matt Ryan the last couple of years, him being sacked over 40 times the last 3 to 4 years. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you had Tom Brady on this team, it's not going to matter. If you can't protect them, it really doesn't matter. And that's what I was referring to with the Andrew Luck statement that I made earlier. If you don't protect your franchise quarterback, it doesn't matter. If you don't give them time to throw the ball, I don't care who you have. You can have Joe Montana, you can have Tom Brady, you can have Michael Vick. It doesn't matter. You can have Lamar Jackson. It doesn't matter. If you can't protect, that's the Barney basics of football. To be able to run the football, to be able to pass the football, you have to protect the quarterback. You have to create holes in the running game, and you have to control the line of scrimmage on both offense and defense. The teams that consistently win in the NFL and in the game of football in general are usually the team that dominates the trenches and dominates the line of scrimmage. If you can move another man against his will, you'll be able to keep your offense on the field on short yardage downs because you're going to be able to pick up first downs consistently. And if you can rush the passer, you're going to be able to get off the field on third downs because you're going to be able to sack the quarterback. You're going to be able to stop a team on third or fourth and short. You're going to be able to make that stop in the backfield if you're a defensive lineman, and be able to control that line of scrimmage. So controlling the line of scrimmage is the key to winning football, point blank in the period. But with that being said, I appreciate each and every one of you guys joining me tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Definitely continue to join your boy every Wednesday night here for What's the Word Wednesdays, every night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Definitely go ahead and share this content out. Make sure you guys hit that like, share, subscribe. Also, tune in tonight. Noah will be doing his show tonight. I believe he goes at 10 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. And forgive me if I'm wrong, Noah, but I believe it's 10 p.m. He's on the West Coast, and he does his shows on Wednesday nights as well. Also, go over to Six Man K Styles, which is my bro from the Heavy Hitters. He's on his way to 1,000 subscribers. I believe he's maybe about 200 away from 1,000. So get him to 1K. Also, go over to Mad Mike's channel as well. He was on the quest to 7,000 subscribers. And check out Six Man K Styles tomorrow as well, where he'll do the 6-man convo. But this be your boy Jew. Help your boy get to 2,000 subs. I believe I'm about 300 away from 2,000 subs. And once we get to 2,000 subs, I think I'm gonna do a raffle or a drawing for you guys. So I appreciate you guys continuing to support the channel. But you guys, I'll holler at you guys. I'm gonna give you guys your Wednesday night back. We'll see you guys next Wednesday, but I'll have a lot more coming for you guys. And Mike dropped it in the chat. It's actually 11 p.m. tonight. So tune into Noah Tyndale. He does his show at 11 Eastern time. So you guys check him out over on the West Coast. He has great content as well. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Peace.